and gentlemen, welcome to the Crypto Gaming Institute podcast. My name is Ben, and today we have the honor of speaking with the founder of Mintable, Mr. Zach Burks. What's going on today, man?
Hey, what's up? Thanks, Ben. That was a good intro. It sounds like you're getting ready for your wrestling matches.
Well, we're about to wrestle with some ideas, get down to some good alpha, and have a lot of fun while we're doing it. So appreciate that setup for that layup of a pun. But anyway, Zach, would love to really get into your story and understand how you really got to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. You know, I got lucky. I'm a nerd, right? I mean, I'm wearing a NASA shirt, right? So obviously, I'm a nerd. I kind of was born and raised on the internet, like most people around my age that were nerds, and so I found Bitcoin very early on. Didn't understand it, just like everyone else. When you find Bitcoin for the first time, it's just like magic internet money. But luckily, I got in early. So I got into Bitcoin and crypto around 2012, 2013. Then, I was in the military, and I got out of the military. I started focusing really heavily on, software development and crypto. And I kind of dropped out of school, and I said, you know what, I'm going to go full time into crypto as a smart contract developer. So that was around 2015 or 2016. I became a smart contract developer on Ethereum, converted all my Bitcoin over to ETH, never looked back. And I've been working on Ethereum, pretty much ever since, and in crypto full time since. Then 2017 rolled around, and that's when everything changed because, not by conscious decision or anything, but I actually fell in love with NFTs, and since then, it's the only thing that I've done is work on NFTs and NFT related things. So if you've interacted with an NFT on Ethereum, you have probably interacted with code that I have written. Whether it was, when I made Mintable in 2018, it was the first tool on the internet to generate NFTs and then to transfer and manage your NFTs and mint them. This is before, the 721 standard was official. This was before MetaMask, or back in that day, it was my Ether wallet and MetaMask. But before either of them supported or even talked about NFTs, and so, very early on, I got into NFTs. I think in 2018, I published a paper with the IEEE, which is the International Electrical Engineers and Engineering publication. It's very prestigious. I published a paper with the goal of using ERC 721s, which are NFTs, in a food traceability supply chain system to track food from farm all the way to the table using NFTs, and this was in 2018. And I built Mintable in 2018 as well. Been running Mintable ever since. It's been quite a story, quite a journey over those last almost 4 years now, like 3 or 4 years since I started Mintable, and things have been going absolutely amazing. Right, we're one of the largest NFT platforms on the internet today. There's millions and millions of items that have been made on our platform. Millions of dollars have been transacted on our platform. We have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of users. I think overall, some of the stuff that Mintable has worked on or that I have created, like gasless minting, is really critical to pushing forward the adoption of crypto and blockchain through NFTs. Because it's, if you go back to like 2018, you'll find me in an interview saying the same thing, saying that NFTs are the next wave of adoption, right? But we've actually seen it this year, right? This year we actually saw, millions and millions of people getting onboarded into the world of blockchain through NFTs. And so, that's kind of been our goal, and that's what we've been doing. So that's a little bit about myself.
That's amazing. Now, I want to absolutely dive into the story more of Mintable and would love to kind of break down that rise from 2018. But before we get into that, when you made the decision, I think you said 2015, you're like, I'm all in on smart contracts. You moved over your Bitcoin to ETH. That was a pretty big bet pretty early on. What really was the writing on the wall where you were like, okay, I'm going all in on this? And I'm in a big bet from a time perspective. Like if you're course correcting your whole career to focus on one thing, like that's a pretty big deal for an individual. So what did you see that made you think and decide, okay, this is the thing. This is my thing. I'm going for it.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I don't get asked that question a lot, but I think part of it is the ability to do so because I was young and stupid, right? If I've got a kid, if I've got a wife, a family I've got to support, I'm 35, and I said, hey, I'm going to dive into this new cutting edge technology called Ethereum that's a year old or 2 years old, right? That's a gamble. That's risky. But when you are, I don't know how old I was, what, 2015. Um, I don't know, 29 right now. So whatever the math is, it's late here for me, man. Um, and I just got done with the gym. I don't know if you can tell I'm all sweaty. But so, anyways, back then I was young, so it wasn't a big decision for me to be able to say I'm going to do this full time. It was more of a big decision to drop out of school, right? Because that's at that age, right? Dropping out of school is a big thing. But you also have to remember that being in Bitcoin early, I treated it as a savings account. So my first Bitcoin buy was at like 550, so $5.50. And I just continually would buy. I lost a lot of money on Mt. Gox. I spent a lot of Bitcoin on stupid shit, and so I treated it as a savings account. And after those years, Ethereum rolls around, and I look at it, and being a tech guy, a nerd, I know that like the potential of the iPhone and what the iPhone did, right? How the application market in it, back when the iPhone came out, there were no apps, but once apps and the apps were created, it was this whole new economy that kind of was formed, right? And I realized that for Ethereum compared to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the rotary telephone, right? It's an improvement to the telegraph. It most definitely is. But Ethereum is the iPhone to, the rotary telephone. So for me, crypto was always kind of a gamble at that point, right? Early on, when you buy Bitcoin at $5, you're buying, I had to buy gold first. It was like digital gold and then transfer digital gold to like Mt. Gox. And, all of that was a gamble at that point, right? So it's not like I was considering my options and saying, oh, I can be a lawyer or I can gamble on this new blockchain technology. Right? I was a kid. And I just kind of said, you know what? Actually, what I did was I said, I'm going to take a 6-month break from school and I'm going to go to Thailand. And I was going to finish Mintable and launch Mintable and then come back to school 6 months later after I failed, right? Because that's how things go. Well, I'm here in Asia now and I've never come back. So
That's amazing. So, okay, so you launched Mintable 2018, and if we look back to history, thinking of marketplaces, the biggest problem that most marketplaces face is the chicken and egg problem, which is you need supply and you need demand, and if you don't have either, the other one will go. So you kind of need them both at the same time, unless you're taking some other strat. But how did you even get to the point where you could face the chicken and egg problem, like from a legal perspective, from a building perspective? Like, did you do it all yourself? Did you have to pay other people to do stuff? Like, how did you even get to the point where you could face the chicken and egg problem?
yeah, look, a few things to clarify. One, in 2018, when I launched Mintable, and I built Mintable all by myself up until 2020, the end of 2020, right? I self-funded Mintable out of my own pocket and everything like that. All the development was through me and one friend of mine, but he was only on for a little bit, and then he went to go do bigger and better things with his life, right? But the majority of it, 99% of it was me for those early days. And in the beginning, it was not a marketplace. It was a tool. It was a tool to let anyone create an NFT, deploy a smart contract, put their metadata in there. We worked really closely with OpenSea. Obviously, at the time, OpenSea was only a few months old. We were only a few months old. Devin, Alex, and I, we've chatted for years, right? Because people would make an NFT on Mintable, and then we would say, go see it on OpenSea, or go sell it on OpenSea. And then if they had an issue, they would either say, hey, go talk to Mintable, or we would say, hey, go talk to OpenSea. We built this relationship. And it wasn't until about 6 months after launching Mintable as a tool that I said, okay, look, what I built was the first ever on the internet, right? Like, there was the first way to create NFTs, the first way to mint NFTs, to manage it and transfer those NFTs. And of course, later, Wallet supported it, my Ether wallet supported it, things like this. But at the time, it was the first. And when I realized that from an entrepreneurial standpoint, I said, hey, that's like a golden egg. How many times do you build something and then you start Googling for hours on end and you can't find anything related to what you've just built, right? Either you are crazy and you build something that no one cares about, or you just got a golden egg, right? So I assumed it was the golden egg, and I wasn't crazy, right? Because most crazy people don't think they're crazy. So, and I guess I am crazy because it worked. But so I said we need a business model for this, right? Being a tool isn't going to make us a multi-billion-dollar company. So we said, okay, we'll be a marketplace. And at the time, we were the only place to make NFTs. And so in the early days, the NFT space was so small. It was so small. And if I guarantee you, if you talk to someone who was in NFTs in 2018, they know about Mintable. And they most likely made their first NFT on Mintable. In fact, I don't want this person, because they're quite famous, to come after me if I'm mistaken. There's two very famous people in the NFT space, as in like one of the top selling artists of all time, right? So you know who I'm referring to. There's only a few of them. It's not people, and I can't remember the exact one. There's two others that have both used Mintable, and they made their very first NFT on Mintable, right? And we onboarded them into NFTs, and now they made hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And I still talk to some of these people. And again, I don't want to say any names because I can't identify exactly which one it was out of these two guys that I'm referring to. But I remember that one of them, we were their first experience, right? And I remember talking to him, just a few months ago, and we were talking about how far all of us have come, right? And so if you used NFTs at that point, you knew about us because it's such a small community. And we said, okay, look, we were generating most of the NFTs, if not all the NFTs, because we were the only place that you couldn't mint on OpenSea at the time. You couldn't. There was no, Rarible didn't exist, and so if you made the NFT, you made it through us, and then we would refer you to OpenSea, and then that's where you would trade it. So with the chicken and the egg problem, we didn't have that because we were just the creators of the content, right? I built a tool for you to create your content. You go sell it. OpenSea dealt with the chicken and the egg problem. Now. We always wanted to be a marketplace, though. I said about 6 months after we built it, I said we need to find a business model. We decided to do a marketplace. Now, working closely with OpenSea, and again, this being early stages, there was a lot of problems that I saw. So from effectively 2019 till the end of 2020, I was, busting my ass, just building out, the marketplace of Mintable by myself, mind you. So a lot of bugs. And and it had a lot of really cool features. So to give you an example, direct messaging, right? Advertising, the ability to upload extra images. There's no limit on what you can create in terms of your NFTs. And some of these features are still here today. Some of them, we've gotten rid of because they weren't really relevant. And so, the biggest feature was gasless minting. And I created that in December of 2020. December of 2020, and we launched it in January, and that's when things blew up. Because what happens is, if you have someone watching the show right now, and maybe they don't have crypto, maybe they just found this and they've heard about NFTs, they saw the thing about people, they don't understand it, they don't have crypto, they've never gone to Coinbase, but they're an artist or they're a musician, and they want to say, okay, well, you know what, NFTs make sense, I get it, I can sell art, I can sell music, that's easy, it's not a financial derivative, it's not complicated, it's understandable, it's easy. I want to do it. So they go and they Google, where do I make an NFT? And they find OpenSea. And then OpenSea says connect your wallet. And they go, I don't know what that is. But okay, it's easy. I've downloaded some extension of a Fox, whatever, right? And then it says submit your transaction to initialize your account. And then they go, wait a second. I have to pay. I have to pay money. I don't have money. Where am I going to get this, right? And then they can't use OpenSea. And then they go back to Google and they say, where can I mint the NFT? They go to Rarible. They go to Foundation. They go to Super Rare. And they go to all these platforms. And it's always the same. You need to have ETH. We made gasless minting. Which is really cool technologies. It's we're the only ones that have this proprietary technology. It's there's no compromise. It's on Ethereum. It's not centralized. It's not on a sidechain, and it's not lazy minted or deferred. And what it means is that person that doesn't have crypto can come on and they can make their NFT with zero transaction fees. And it's not on a layer 2, and it's not lazy minted where the buyer is just going to pay to mint it. It's minted for real. And to prove this to you, you can go to Mintable right now. You can go gasless mint an item. You can add the address and token ID into MetaMask. You'll see it in your MetaMask account. And from your MetaMask account, you can immediately transfer it, sell it, burn it, do whatever you want with it. It's an NFT, it's real. And you'll see the gas fees are cheaper than what the gas fees would be for any other NFT that you have, like a Bored Ape or any other traditional NFT. Because not only have we made gas as minted, but I've also optimized the contract to make things really cheap, right? And the Ethereum Foundation actually paid me to do that for the ERC 721 standard, to go through and optimize it, to create a new way to print multiple NFTs, which we call printable series, and then also to create the royalty standard, which is ERC 2981, which is the standard, the official standard of how you should do royalties for items on the blockchain. So it's really cool tech, and that opened the door, because now my mom, who never is going to buy Bitcoin, who never has signed up on Coinbase, she can go and she can upload that beautiful picture of my face on Mintable and post it as an NFT and try to sell it, right? And in the reality, no one's going to buy a picture of my face. But if she was an artist or a musician, she might wake up in the morning and find that she's got, $100 in her MetaMask account, and she goes, "Wait, okay, I've got $100 in here. Now, I want to go buy groceries with that. How do I do that? What do I do? Oh, okay, I go to Coinbase. Okay, let me go do KYC with Coinbase." She's motivated because she wants to get that $100 out, right? And so we've changed that adoption cycle for new users. And this is why Mintable is so large in its user base. We have 2 days ago, it was like 620,000. Today, it's probably like 650 or 670,000 registered user accounts on our platform. We grow by anywhere from 50 to 100,000 new accounts every month. We get 300 million page views a month. We have 30 plus million NFTs on our platform. And those are also every NFT. So go look up Bored Ape. You can go find a Bored Ape on Mintable. You can go find any NFT that you just minted automatically on Mintable. We basically do everything OpenSea does, but just a little bit better with no downtime.
So. That's amazing. So you literally have been pioneering features when it comes to, or not features, but like standards when it comes to protocols, and working with the Ethereum Foundation to actually change the game and optimize things. That's so fascinating. So when you're thinking of other marketplaces, like, do you see, for example, OpenSea, like, do you see them as a competitor at this point, or is it just one big ecosystem where everybody's trying to grow the pie together? Like, how do you actually see other marketplaces?
Well, there's two classification of marketplaces. There's closed and open. So this is an important differentiation that most people don't recognize until I explain it to them. But it's a very, very big difference. Open marketplaces is Mintable, OpenSea, Rarible, where you can find every and any NFT. If you go make an NFT right now, it will show up on Mintable, right? That's an open marketplace. The closed marketplaces are the foundations, the super rares, the known origins, the Binance NFTs, the FTXs. These are closed. And what that means is that from a competitor's landscape, do we look at closed marketplaces as competitors, direct competitors? No, not really. Actually, they're kind of partners, because they're doing the initial sales. So Binance NFT will partner with Shaq or whatever, and they'll do some crazy NFT drop. But there needs to be a secondary marketplace for people to trade that, right? And that's where we come in. So we look at them as complementary. I hope Super Rare does record-breaking sales, not only because we have similar investors, but also because if there's a lot of activity on Super Rare, there's going to be a lot of secondary activity on other platforms as well, right? Now, when you look at open platforms that are more closely resembling a direct competitor, you bring up a really good example, which is does the pie just get bigger for everyone? And Peter Thiel talks about this, where competition's for losers. So on paper, if you were like a financial banker for Goldman and you were doing a SWOT analysis, yeah, OpenSea is our competitor, right? But in the true reality of things, OpenSea and us, we are collaborating, and we are building a movement. We are building an ecosystem. We are building standards and economies that have never existed before. And if one company makes more money than the other, I mean, so be it. That's okay, right? There's good examples in history that you can look back on and see that, if it wasn't for Microsoft, Apple would not exist, right? Because Microsoft literally, bailed them out when they were out of money. And of course, that's not going to happen with OpenSea. That's funny, but it's an example of showing where competition doesn't necessarily matter, because you need to grow that personal computing industry, more so than crush the competition of a very small industry. So we've seen NFTs go from 330 million in global volume up to 20 to 40 billion this year, depending on the metrics that you use, and if you count wash trading. Next year, probably closer to around 80 billion, and that's what they're expecting by 2025, right? So I think by 2025, it's going to be a much, much larger market. And I think OpenSea will play a role, Mintable will play a role, and all the marketplaces will play a role. There's more to Mintable than just being a marketplace that a lot of people don't know about. To give you a very clear, separated example, we have an investment arm where we do venture investments into the NFT space, right? Another example is we have a B2B SaaS for enterprise clients like Starbucks, Coca-Cola, Fortune 100 companies to allow them to use NFTs. And this is not the same business model as the. Some people might hate on me for this, but I'm gonna spit some truth here. In 2017, when ICOs came out, every person on LinkedIn was now an ICO advisor, ICO marketer. There was ICO marketing from left and right? You know what I'm talking about if you've been around.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And it's kind of a red flag. Like when I interview people, if they say, oh, back in 2018, I was an ICO advisory person or I did ICO marketing, I immediately just say, I'm not going to hire you, right? But the point is you get these people that just jump on this hot trend, and we've seen that with NFTs this year. There are hundreds of closed marketplaces that have raised 5 million, 10 million. They raised valuations of $500 million with literally no product, right? And there's hundreds of them. And those are the ICO marketers of 2017. Those are the people that are saying, look, I've got connections with Nicki Minaj, and we're going to do a drop with Kim Kardashian, and I'm going to get a licensing deal with Disney and Marvel, and we're going to do NBA Top Shots, but for cartoon characters. And they'll get a lot of money. They'll do a few drops, but it's going to be oversaturated because Disney is going to realize that they don't need to pay this fund to do this. And then there's also the whole oversaturation effect of, this happened early on, but it was a very clear example of oversaturation. Taco Bell. I love Taco Bell, by the way. I'm in Singapore. There's no Taco Bell. I hate it. But I love Taco Bell. And they released NFTs last year, mind you, very early on in the trend of NFTs being hot, like in January or February. And everyone was just like, Taco Bell, are you for real? Like, you really just make NFTs? Like, you're a loser, right? And there was that backlash because it was over. You're like, Taco Bell's doing this, I don't want to buy it anymore. I'm not going to spend $100,000 on Taco NFT. And so that oversaturation was already occurring in February. And this is why Mintable stopped doing drops. Actually, because we did a drop with CNBC where Jim Cramer, CNBC, they're running commercials on it. He's talking about it. All their announcers are talking about for 3 days straight. And we had like 4 billionaires bidding on it. It went great, but we stopped doing that because that's oversaturation in the market. And those are, when you look at, we go back to competition and Peter Thiel's position on it, there's either a monopoly or you have just, massive competition. And when you look at the closed marketplaces that are doing the drops model where they work with celebrities or brands and they're just releasing one-off collections or whatever, right? Those are the highly competitive, oversaturated, little margin areas that you don't want to be in. Right? As an investor, you don't want to invest in. And as a business owner, you don't want to operate a business in that area. It's like a restaurant, right? But on the flip side, you have the monopoly. And then you would say, okay, well, the OpenSea is the monopoly of NFTs. That's not necessarily true because OpenSea only does one thing with NFTs. But NFTs is a very small, nascent space, but it's very lateral. So let me give you an example of something that like Mintology does. So Mintology is our B2B product under Mintable. It's called Mintology by Mintable. And Mintology lets you scan a QR code and you can get a free NFT, which is, that's cool, nice and dandy. How are you going to build a business around that? Well, what if you went into Starbucks and you scanned the QR code at Starbucks and you got a loyalty rewards card if you don't already have one? But if you do already have one NFT, then the points on your loyalty NFT go up. And then you can redeem those at the cash out, at the counter to pay, either by looking at the NFT or changing the date on the NFT or transferring the NFT. Or I can come in and Starbucks and coupons and loyalties is a little iffy. But if we look at something a little bit more, I would say pragmatic, You can look at something like insurance policies. An insurance agency or an insurance company that wants to facilitate the trading of policies, but doesn't necessarily want to deal with the regulatory hurdle, or maybe the regulatory oversight is too much for them from a financial burden, and NFTs may or may not solve that regulatory or reporting burden. Then the question comes to them, which is, how do we make 1 million NFTs for 1 million different people? And then you know what the answer is well, you pay $50 million in gas fees and you have to do 1 million transactions, right? And they're going to say, okay, no NFTs for us. But with Mintology, it's minting via API using our gasless technology on Ethereum for free. So if McDonald's or insurance agencies, they want to do 1 million NFTs, they can do it. In fact, right now, OpenSea has about 2 to 3 million users, okay? And Mintable's got around 650,000, right? Mintology it's been in stealth mode. We don't even have a website yet that's public. But we have 5 clients. One of them is a publicly listed company. Another one is pretty much close to being publicly listed. Very large clients. And across the board, we have 75 million people that are using NFTs without actually knowing that they're using NFTs, or without having to buy crypto or have a crypto balance or have a crypto wallet. That's 75 million people. That is literally 25 times OpenSea's user base, just through a product that hasn't even launched yet. That's the power of Mintology for brands, and that's why I said, 80 billion by 2025. No way, 80 billion by next year. Because when you have Coca-Cola and casinos and governments and airline companies, you name it, there's a way that an NFT can be applied to it. It's not the cash cow model of Qantas is going to sell some NFT collectibles. Like, that's, no one cares about that, right? That's the Taco Bell example. But what if your itinerary or your travel rewards points were an NFT, or your check-in pass was an NFT? That doesn't make much sense, but I guess you could do it.
Well, for travel, that could absolutely make sense from a nostalgia perspective, because you could almost build like a scrapbook of all your travels and have it memorialized as NFTs.
Right, and but when you get to that example, then you start asking the question of what these Fortune 100 companies will ask is, how are we going to make money off of this? And so we're partnering with MasterCard. So I just had a call with MasterCard a few nights ago. The vice president of MasterCard here in APAC in Asia called me the other day after they did their Coinbase announcement with what they're doing with them, because they want to keep us in the loop. We're partnering with them. When you talk to these companies, the way that they think about NFTs is so much different than what the normal person that is using Mintable and Rarible and OpenSea are thinking. I'm just so bullish on it. Let me give you an example. Imagine, what is a very hot tourist destination? Let's say
New Orleans.
Okay, New Orleans. Or the Bahamas, whatever, same thing, right? One's a little bit nicer, but effectively the same thing. So New Orleans. So for Mardi Gras, right? So you come in for Mardi Gras, and when you fly into the airport, you know how whenever you get to the airport, there's always the billboards and the ads and all that shit as you walk out of your plane. What if there was the QR code that said, "Welcome to New Orleans, get your free Mardi Gras 2022 NFT." And you scanned it and you got it. You don't even need to have a wallet, because you can get, we have a custodial wallet solution for that. So when you come off the plane, you can claim a free NFT that basically says, "I was here," right? So from let's say an airport, if the airport or the company that was paying for the ad space did that, wanted to do that, they say, well, what's our financial incentivization to pay for that? Well, it's user engagement. Right? It's user engagement. It's royalties on the secondary market, if there are any. If you want to buy a Mardi Gras collectible item, right? You probably don't. But there's other use cases that you might. So there's the secondary market, if there is a utility for it. Then there's the actual utility of it, like saying, hey, next time, or we partner with all these bars, and if you show your NFT at these bars, you get a free drink, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What it comes down to is user engagement. And that's where these multi-billion-dollar companies are looking at NFTs, is for user engagement. I remember sitting down with the founder of DraftKings, and DraftKings, they've been doing their NFT thing for a while now, and talking with them, obviously they're fantasy, sports and fantasy football and gambling. That's the perfect fit for NFTs, right? Like that's perfect, and that's of course why we were talking early on. And it wasn't about just selling out, max. It wasn't about doing what the fashion company just did. I don't even want to name their name, where they just sold out, $20 million in 5 minutes or whatever it was, right? Because that's just milking money. That's all they're trying to do. There's no utility there. They say there's some utility, but when I see the real utility of something from a brand, when I talk to a brand and the brand says, you know what, we're not worried about making a few extra $1 million. We want user engagement. That gets me excited, because there's a lot of ways we can do that, not only from the marketplace side, but from the B2B side. And all of this comes into one big picture of NFTs as a lateral vertical, or I guess a lateral vertical makes sense, a lateral industry where you have consumer marketplaces, you have IP and brands, you have music dedication, just for music, because that's going to happen. And then you have the large brands that are using it for, whether it's ticketing or whether it's for passes or royalties or whatever. And what you end up seeing is, well, it's effectively a brand new technology sector. This is what the internet sector looked like in the beginning as well, right? And that's what Mintable is trying to do. That's why we call ourselves the NFT company, because we're not just a consumer marketplace. We're not just an investor. We're not just a B2B, a SaaS business, but we're pretty much the glue for the entire ecosystem as a whole.
I love that. So let's kind of shift the conversation a little bit to really focus in on the future of gaming and the metaverse per se. And I don't just want to use like a fluff term for the metaverse. Like the way I'd like to kind of help us keep it in perspective for the context of the conversation is the metaverse is the end game of the internet, where everything that we see online is already the metaverse. We're already living in it. We just have inefficient portals of interacting with it. And each game is going to build their own world or their own little section of the greater metaverse, but it's all one thing, and it's all being built out at the same time collectively. So from that perspective, how do you see NFTs playing a role in the future of gaming and the metaverse? And I would love to just understand how you're thinking about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, the way you phrase and define the question, the answer is, and you gave me the answer, right? NFTs, obviously, you have these individual games that are being built, and you need this interoperability. That's what the NFT comes in for, right? Where the gold that I have in World of Warcraft has some sort of translation to, the other games that I'm playing. If you notice, I can't come up with a game name because I don't have time to play games. I wish I did. All I know is Fortnite and Battlefield. I have Battlefield, but I haven't played in a long time. Anyways, point is the NFTs is the interoperability. And so I had a call with the CEO of Razer. And Razer is obviously a huge gaming company.
Of course.
And they have obviously their own version of kind of Steam, and their own partners and everything, and they have their own payment system. And so, we're talking about how can Razer use NFTs, and of course, I bring up the metaverse. This was 6, 7, 8 months ago, right? And I bring this up to him, and I tell him, of course, he knows about this, and I say, why can't you, since you run that centralized game marketplace where you can, get DLCs and skins and all that stuff, why can't you just have a standard for all the games to follow so that the NFTs are interoperable? And then, of course, he tells me, he's like, come on, man, dude, you know how many game companies and studios that we work with? They're from all over the world. They all have different, it's in different languages. It's in different programming languages, and then actual verbal languages, and different business models and stuff like that. And he's like, it's just too much of a headache logistically to do something like that. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, I don't see a solution to that. Like, how do you ask every game on Steam to interact with my CryptoKitty or my CryptoPunk or my Bored Ape, right? Like, this is actually something I've recently been thinking as a new standard for Ethereum, a new ERC, which is the metaverse interoperability standard within the metadata of the NFT. I don't have too much on this, so if there's a developer that's out there listening, I would love to chat and kind of brainstorm some ideas here, because I was just talking to another metaverse studio, which, by the way, they're doing a job on Mintable. Well, it's not a drop; it's a launch pad, because their game goes live. It's a live VR kind of thing, sandbox, or kind of Decentraland. Um, and it's going to happen on Mintable later next month. It uses layer 2 of Mintable X. But anyways, I was talking to him, and I asked him, I said, how hard would it be for me to get one of my NFTs into your game? And he goes, well, it depends. Is there the 3D object already attached to the NFT? And I go, well, I knew that would be a problem, so let's just say yes. Let's just assume that there is. And he goes, okay, well, now what files it in? And I go, ah, shit, that's right. There's different file formats. And I go, what do you use? And he goes, he starts listing off, like, I don't do 3D stuff for programming. So he starts listing off like 5 different file formats of like the game characters that they use. And so this is where I'm thinking of, like, how are we going to create a standard to standardize this in the metadata? Because I can't force you to use JPEG, or I can't force you to use MP3, right?
So I've thought about this a lot. This is the only solution I can think of that's actually feasible within a relatively non-disgusting amount of time, is some sort of translating, like a translation mechanism in between everything, where it works on the metadata layer, and you would have to build out a way, like you would have to build from the middle. You would have to understand how what the game's inputs are, and you'd have to be able to kind of translate from the existing standards into that, make it compatible for that game. But then as you support that game, or even at an ecosystem level, as you support that ecosystem, you could almost bring entire areas online of translation to where it would make sense for them to be able to easily visually represent that. And it's just this middle layer. And then once you start to conquer one area of like, okay, this works, then it's just adding on as many other layers and standards and games and ecosystems as you possibly can. That's the only way I can think about it to solve it.
I mean, and that is a way. There's a million ways to skin a cat, right? And someone will figure this out. And it's probably not going to be you and me on this call right now. I'll tell you that, right? But
we can do it.
Who knows, right? Some of the best ideas come out that way. No, look, I think from what I heard as a software developer from that is this translation layer needs to be built from the game studio. World of Warcraft needs to build their own translator to be able to take Bored Apes, right? And then Fortnite, they need their own translator to be able to say, look, it's supposed to be able to have this many hit points, or it's supposed to be able to carry this much stuff in its inventory, right? And World of Warcraft would have to modify that. So I don't see how that would be a standard, because it would have to be custom, which again is now we're asking every game to then go select NFTs. For the standard, what we need is we need a translator, like what you said, but we need a translator for the character model. And that's it. Because once you get the character model in the games, most games can just apply, this is a NPC, this is a player, this is a house, whatever, right? And then that house has its own inventory, its own stats, its own utility, its own functionality, right? So all you need to do is really just classify the image into the game and translate, the Bored Ape image that I have, which is just a JPEG, and figure out how to turn that into this 3D representation in my game, and then assign it the class of, a boss or of an NPC trader or whatever, right? And I think that is really hard to do because it depends on the file format. But then from the standards, it's not hard, because from an NFT standard point, all we might have to say is, hey, include one extra bit of information, which is really what we would say. Include one extra bit of information in the metadata as requirement, just like how you have an image, which is basically required in the metadata, right, for an NFT. It's not, but it basically is. Then we would say there'd be one more, which would be, I don't know, 3D compiling script or whatever, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. And that extra bit of data, whether it's bytes of data that tell you what the character should look like, or if it's the actual image itself, I don't know the answer to that. But I think that's what would happen, and then every game would be able to say, I just pull that either that value or that string or whatever it is, and there's some software that is able to generate that into the model that I need, right? And I think that is the only way that we will really see interoperability, or we will see communities of interoperability, where and we've actually already been doing this. We've been talking with some of the largest game studios in South Korea, And South Korea, everyone loves games. It's all mobile gaming, and these studios, they just have a ton of AAA games, and they all kind of work together in terms of their branding and some of the characters and their skins and stuff like that. So NFTs are perfect for them. So for a situation like one particular game studio, or maybe even one or two game studios working together, very much feasible, very easy to do, right? Animoca, one of our investors, they're working with Bored Apes, they're making a game, and guess what? I can most likely be able to make my own game that interacts with their game based off the NFT, right? And we'll do this, but it's all individual. So it's never going to get to the point where every game on Steam has it. It's just like VR now, right? There's no button I can press to take my old version of a game and turn it into a VR version of a game, right? There's a lot of work you got to do. And I don't know the answer. It's a very hard problem to solve.
Okay, one more idea, and then let's keep going with
it.
But
Hey! You promised me no hard questions on this call. I put away my physics book, man. Come
on. You got me there. All right, I got one more.
Go on. No, these are fun.
So what if there was almost like some sort of algorithm, and now I'm talking more machine learning, where it can almost scrape the metadata on the NFT side, and then it can scrape the input data from the game to just learn about what the game wants. So it would be game agnostic, it would be NFT agnostic, and it would basically have like that translation mechanism in the middle, almost like re-encryption in the middle, to where it takes the input from the NFT in the form of metadata, it translates it in the middle, and then it makes it palatable for the game that it's trying to introduce that metadata to. And then in order to train it, in the beginning, the games would have to say either like give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down of like, yes, this is good, or no, it's not. And then over time, you work with enough games and it would get pretty good at getting to what the people wanted, at least on a per game basis, and then scale that out by working with other games, other ecosystems, etc.
So I don't want to be a negative Nancy, okay? Because my name's Zach, so I'm not even Nancy. So we'll start off there. But that reminds me of what Tesla had to do with their neural net for road vision, right? It's not easy. And there's a standard for reality, which is, a sidewalk looks like a sidewalk pretty much everywhere, right? Like there's differences in the sidewalk, which is why it's so difficult to solve, but it's a sidewalk, right? Now, when we talk about video games, though, World of Warcraft and Pong or Tetris and RuneScape and an FPS game, these are so vastly different. I don't see how a neural net will be able to learn that for this space fighter game, this is what it needs to do from this NFT data, and for this MMORPG that's built around building cities, this is what that NFT needs to do, right? I see that as being even harder than doing the machine learning or the neural net needed for computer vision of driving a vehicle, because that's essentially what you're doing is you're digesting the game universe, and you're saying, okay, this is a space game, this is a PFP NFT, therefore this is probably going to need to be the captain of the spaceship. Does this game have captains? You know what I mean? So I don't know if that's going to work. I don't want to be a negative Nancy, so I'll just say, you know what? It sounds like a great idea. To be honest, I don't know, man. Who knows, right? You might be the smartest dude in the world, and you might have just given away $1 billion idea to someone watching, right? To be honest, I really don't know if that would work.
Well, hey, if somebody knows how to execute, let's rock and roll, because this will be fun. But from the perspective of interoperability, it seems like that there are a lot of technical hurdles to get there. But just kind of from your understanding of what is possible with NFTs and what is coming in the future, like what are you the most excited about? What are you looking forward to as far as what we can do with them from a reasonable technological perspective?
There's a lot, man. Again, most people know us, Mintable, as the marketplace. And so when I talk about these B2B things, it might be confusing. It It might almost make people feel like, oh, Mintable doesn't care about their marketplace. No, our marketplace is still number one, right? It's our core business. But when you look at these other use cases and utilities outside of what you and your buddies might trade or make some money on, there's a lot of really cool potential stuff that we've talked to. From tickets, which is you can every journalist in the world can write about NFTs and tickets. That makes a lot of sense, and that's why it's the first go-to thing. Same with games; these are low-hanging fruits. These are things where you're just like, boom, makes a lot of sense. NFTs are perfect for that, right? But there's things that don't make a lot of sense off the bat. But NFTs really are perfect for them. So let me give you an example of receipts. I don't know if you're as financially responsible as you should be, but you're supposed to have for 7 years all these receipts, right? And I don't have. I guess I'm not very financially responsible. I don't have a receipt next to me, but the paper that is printed out, it doesn't last 7 years. You put that in the shelf a week later, and you can't even read it, right? Because it's just that weird paper. So an NFT receipt, especially for a high value good, makes a lot of sense. Especially for a luxury product, it makes a lot of sense. I am a watch guy. I like watches, and I have certificates for my watches from the manufacturers. Why is that not an NFT? And we're talking to them about that. In fact, the companies I'll share, I can't share their names, but I'll share the types of companies that we're talking to. Obviously, we're partnered with MasterCard, so we talk to a lot of financial institutions. The largest bank in Southeast Asia, DBS, I actually consulted and helped them with their policy for banking NFT clients. And that's just a personal thing. But for Mintology, we're talking to casinos, airlines, government, like literally governments. It's insane. Like I've never imagined, when you drop out of school and you say, I'm going to go move to Thailand to make this, this NFT thing, that in a few years I'm going to be talking to governments about how they can be utilizing our technology, right? Football clubs, movie studios, celebrities, mobile applications with billions of downloads. In fact, Zedge, if you go Google Zedge, they're the publicly listed company that uses Mintology. They have, I don't know, like about 500 million downloads, like 500 million downloads. They have like 35 million monthly active users, right? And they allow their utility of their app has NFTs now, right, through us. And so I've said it before, and I'll say it again. This year is the year where my mom and your neighbor and everyone just gets slapped in the face with NFTs everywhere we go. When you walk into Kohl's, Starbucks, Target, the bank, you're going to have an NFT thrown in your face in some way, shape, or form. And for the people that hate NFTs because they say either it's really bad for the environment or it's all a scam and a Ponzi scheme, well, one, it's not bad for the environment when you use gaseous minting. Two, we're already working on improving that anyways with Ethereum 2.0. But then for the scam aspects, well, the internet was a scam too. And look how that turned out, right? So I don't have much to say. I think I have a quote from Satoshi that I would say, which is, if you don't understand it, I don't have the time or the desire to explain it to you or something, whatever he said. He said that quote, so I should probably memorize that. It's a good quote. Yeah.
Well, that's going to be exciting to see how NFTs really continue to evolve and to grow and to be more of a mainstay in both the physical and digital world that we live in the both of those worlds. I think it's only going to become more important to humanity as time goes on. So really, really interested in just kind of seeing how that unfolds. So from somebody who's obviously been in crypto for a while, you're definitely a veteran in the space. For people who are new to the space, what advice would you give them as far as like, how do you get involved? How do you like be a part of this in a meaningful way and really make a career out of it at this stage of the game, knowing that we're streaming this January of 2022?
Are you talking about crypto? How to get involved in crypto or NFTs specifically?
NFTs.
So look, this is an example I use, and it's a great example. I think it's going to drive the point home very clearly. If I had a baseball card, and this was a Babe Ruth, right? This is a Babe Ruth card from 1970, mint condition. You know how much it's worth?
I don't.
No, of course you don't. I don't even know if there are 1970. I just made it up, right? I don't have that. But the point is you don't know what it's worth unless you are a hardcore baseball card collector, right? And unless you are looking at the markets and you know that a mint condition, Babe Ruth, whatever, is going for $250,000, right? It's the same for NFTs. If I show you, and I've done this to my girlfriend and to my mom, I show her a picture of a CryptoPunk. I'm like, hey, how much do you think this is? Right? And $10 or whatever. Or my girlfriend, she's smart. She knows now that I'm in NFTs, it should be like $50,000. I go, you're closer, but no, try 600,000 or a million or whatever it is, right? The point is NFTs are very segmented, just like baseball cards are. And so unless you're an expert within that segment, it's very hard for you to value something. Right? This is why you have real estate agents. This is why there are dealers for luxury cars and luxury items, because they know this well, and you just have the cash, right? You don't need to spend the time to research this. But if you want to be involved and you don't want to be taken advantage of, and you don't want to pay middleman fees for brokerages or people to go advise for you, then you need to be the expert, which means that you have to be in the community. And this is why NFTs and community go hand in hand. If your NFT project has no community, it's not going to be successful, right? And if you're investing into an NFT project and there's not very much of a community, that's a red flag, right? Because you need a community there. And so for people that are new to the space, you need to understand that it's just like Pokemon cards or baseball cards or, vintage actual cars, not cards, but cars. They're all individualized markets that require time, research, dedication, and passion to be able to fully understand and profit from. So for the newcomers who have said, look, NFTs look really cool, I just don't know why I would want to spend $250,000 on a picture of a gorilla. The question that they need to raise themselves is, have they done enough research and dived into the communities? And if they have, maybe the Bored Ape is not, it's not for them. That's okay. I do not have a Bored Ape. I don't. I have punks, but I don't have an ape. It's not for me. And that's a personal preference, right? There's a lot of NFTs that I have that I like and people think are stupid. There's a lot of NFTs that people think are great that I think are stupid. And it's a personal preference. This is how NFTs are, and this is how most of life is. You need to do your own research within the community of getting to know, why is Bored Ape so special? What is it about Bored Ape that makes it so valuable? What is it about Bored Ape and NFTs that I can benefit from? Because you realize that in the early days of the internet, there was the whole community aspect, right? And people didn't really know how to communicate. And what did we see come up as one of the very first use cases of the internet? Chat rooms, right? People chatting, local chat rooms, local discussion boards, forums for communications. And coming into the space now in 2022, January, you look at Bored Ape. Bored Ape is not even a year old. And you go, look, they're worth billions of dollars. They're not even a year old. They've got a huge community. What if I built a tool for Bored Ape people? What if I built that community discussion board only for Bored Ape people? What if I built the analytical platform that shows the cheapest of the Bored Apes across every single marketplace, right? Which, by the way, we're building that. So we'll probably be your market. But anyways, so these are things that, as someone coming into the space as an entrepreneur or as someone who just wants to, be a flipper, like, go buy, resell the items for profit, you have to know what the item's value is, and that requires research. If I walk into a yard sale and I see a guitar and it says $5, but I don't know that it's that really valuable, what is it, a Stratus guitar or Stratus or something like that, right? If I don't know that, I'm just going to skip over it, and I just lost out on hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever the profit would have been from that. And so that's an example that is exactly directly relevant to NFTs in the very same capacity. You need to know the NFT space, and the only way you do that is the same way that you would learn the Pokemon space or the baseball card space or luxury vehicle space, is to just research, read, get involved in the community, talk to people, ask for opinions, advice, and be a part of it.
I love it. Zach, you're the man. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule and for helping to really pioneer this whole freaking beautiful, awesome space that's NFTs and all the repercussions of that. So thank you very, very much for everything you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. It was a blast.
You're the man. To everybody watching and listening, thank y'all very much, and I will see you on the